Whenever anyone tries to play Stepmania for the first time, you always notice them going for the arrow keys immediately. Nowadays, avid players of the game think it's quite funny when people do that, given how every player now plays with 2 keys on each hand, also known as the playstyle spread. Back then, however, there were quite a few people that played with the arrow keys. In fact, even when playing spread was becoming the norm, there were still a few players that held on to the classic arrow key styled gameplay, where in this case, they specifically used only 1 finger on each hand. This is known as the playstyle index. It was a different approach to the game, and while they were limited to the types of files they could play, that was what they found fun to play, and it was interesting to see what kind of files players could do with just 2 fingers. While spread players were taken off pushing the limits of how fast 4 keys in general can go, these players called index players had something different in mind. One of the most popular index videos ever, if not the most popular index video, is Archow's classic Quasar 1.5 AAA score. Despite being uploaded in 2006, Archow himself had told me that he actually set the score as early as 2004, just 3 years after the game's inception. A truly legendary score, and Archow was certainly proclaimed as one of the pioneers of this playstyle. Along with Archow, there was another speed demon that was able to showcase his index skills, but with a bit more brute force. Nobody is another index player from the old school scene, and his approach to the game was a bit different. His speed was absolutely insane at the time, as he was passing files that a ton of players couldn't even do with index or spread. In 2006, he uploaded a video of him passing Vertex Delta. In 2007, videos were uploaded of him from 2006, passing the infamous Disregard, Death Reveals, and a very respectable score on Reality. These videos showed that he was on another level at the time, and that there wasn't really anyone to rival his raw index speed. To put it in perspective, nobody was able to consistently sustain 20 keys per second with just 2 fingers. Then on the accuracy side, there was Izzy, who was known for his amazing consistency back in the late 2000s, obtaining quad A's on songs like Vertex Beta, Strange Program, and Vertex Alpha. With a nobody, Archow and Izzy carrying the index scene, it seemed like no one else either had an interest in playing index, played it on a more casual basis, or simply could not rival these players. So what happened afterwards? The index scene became very scarce, and not a lot of interest was shown in watching index players either. With websites like Flash Revolution becoming more popular, step charts for spread players were becoming more frequent. As a result, there basically was no reason to play index. There weren't many files specifically meant for index players, as well as aside from a few hard pad packs, so why play the same few files over and over again? While this happened, there were a few index players that were still active in 2010 to 2013, but they were primarily accuracy players, Sirai's and SM Max being the main ongoers. As someone who started to see a fascination with index, I decided to give it a go myself. To sum it up short, I decided to try and become the second person to pass the infamous Disregard file in index, and try to push the limits a little further than a nobody did back in 2006. Working my way up from 220 BPM streams up to 300 to the point where I could just pass Disregard in March of 2013.
Yes! Second in the world. It's done.
Once I did, I was able to start improving even more and was quite comfortable with where I was in terms of how far I could take this skill set. Around this time, I do remember seeing a player by the YouTube name of 1337 Vertex 1337. His scores were pretty decent, but they weren't anything extravagant at the time. He also didn't interact with the community and just seemed like another Stepmania player floating about on YouTube that just happened to play index. All of a sudden though, something sparked. He began to grind and push boundaries that are still hard to believe to this day. Improvement rates that had everyone skeptical and were astounded at his progress. Despite index being a very obscure playstyle, this person obtained scores that started tons of controversy, utter shock, and caught nearly every top player of the game off guard. This is the story of Vertex.
Yeah.
Vertex is a rhythm gaming prodigy from New York, uploading his index scores when he was around 12 or 13 back in 2012. He never really talked to much of the community aside from a few, and posted primarily scores on Flash Revolution or YouTube whenever he could. Remember how I talked about how amazing Izzy's accuracy was and how brute force fast a nobody was? Imagine both of those attributes, but skyrocketed. As much as I would love to talk about his rise to becoming good at Index back in 2012, sadly he has since deleted both his Twitch and YouTube accounts with all of his older scores. His Flash Revolution account, current YouTube channel Justin S, and his current Twitch channel are still up at least, which showcase some of his best scores to date, so we're lucky to have those at our disposal at least. While he was playing for accuracy scores here and there, he was primarily trying to push the boundaries of how fast Index can go as well. Due to the screenshot service he used, his earlier scores in the Index Scores 2013 thread have sadly been erased. The earliest existing screenshots I could find of Vertex are of him playing Extra Tone Pirates at 1.3 rate and We Write at 255 on 1.3 rate, clocking in at around 325 to 335 BPM and almost getting a AA on them. Despite these being from 5 years ago, these still hold to be extremely impressive scores to this day, and this showed that he was already way ahead of the curve. As for video footage, a player by the name of Dasar was actually able to save at least one of his videos from 2013, a near AA run on Soldier Storm on 1.3 rate, destroying streams that equate to just about 340 BPM or 23 keys per second. He posted all of his screenshots in the Index Scores 2013 to 2014 thread a lot, and garnered quite a bit of attention from players across the game. To put it into perspective for how fast he was improving, take this Extra Tone Pirates 1.3 screenshot I just showed you a little bit ago. Now here's the same exact file 2 days later. A 3% and pretty large accuracy improvement showed how fast he was already improving. To name off just a few more scores nearing the end of his 2013 reign, he was also quite enamored with stamina files, passing Call of the Hound 1.4, which is 208 measures of 308 BPM streams, We Love Llama 1.4, a 4-minute stream fest at 294 BPM with absolutely zero break, and lastly, his 1.1 near AA of Rainbow Hyperspace Keyboard Violation, which is another 300 plus BPM gauntlet of brutally patterned streams. Earlier I talked about a Nobody and My Disregard scores and how they were known to be impressive Index scores at the time, given how infamous the file is as well. But what if Vertex played the file? Well, that's exactly what he did. The first score he had gotten sadly has no screenshot anymore, but luckily we still have the thread from FFR, along with a better score on the file that put him on the map later on. To summarize, the deleted screenshot was a high AA on the file with very solid accuracy. However, that score will mean nothing because just 3 months later, he took the Stepmania community by surprise. On November 24th, 2013, Vertex had posted a screenshot of a 23 perfect AAA run of Disregard. This took the community completely off guard and shocked everyone. While there was a ton of appraisal and utter shock, there also came a fair amount of skepticism as well. How can such a random player that basically plays a dead playstyle come out of nowhere and get a remarkable score like this? The previous world record of this was 43 perfects by Old Cartoon, meaning Vertex had cut the already low perfect count nearly in half. Old Cartoon's score was previously done on Spread and has now been destroyed by an Index player. Sadly, there is no video footage of this specific score, but there still exists videos of him playing this file that we will get into later. This thread blew up more than your usual score thread. This thread extended to nearly 17 pages of people being in constant awe while simultaneously questioning the score's legitimacy. Again, no one had ever heard of this player before, and he had been barely active on the site, only showing some presence on YouTube/Twitch. This game has had its history of cheaters every once in a while, but Vertex had been posting video proof with handcam for a while now, so why question him? The main thing that people brought that could have been possible is that he altered the timing windows of the game's judge system in order to attain better accuracy with less effort. Others thought the run was pre-recorded and were sped up to look real as well. Some people in the thread posted steps to make a proof video, which we will get into later, in order for him to prove his legitimacy. He was able to do so, and he actually shut most or everyone up for a while. And a couple days after the thread died down, he had posted on FFR, "The show must go on." Could this have been that Vertex might have had something better to post? On December 30th, 2013, he had posted in the top 5 accomplishments thread and posted his best scores from that year. After that, he posted one more casual score in the Index Scores thread, then he just vanished. After disappearing on FFR for about a year and a half, Vertex came back and posted a few scores in the 2015 Stepmania Scores thread on April 6, 2015. It seemed like a sign that he was back and ready to take everyone by surprise again at the time. However, after this, he seemed to not show much activity on the site, and people were starting to become confused. Some more time passes, and on August 9th, 2015, he begins to start massacring the game again and uploads a set of absolutely absurd scores that dominated everything he's gotten in the past. I can't even begin to describe these, so I will play a quick compilation of these that go to mildly fitting music.
Holy shit!
All of a sudden, he stopped uploading again. He was streaming every once in a while, but it was almost impossible to tell if he was ever going to be active in the community again, or if he was just going to pop in out every few months and post these phenomenal scores. A few months later, on November 6th, 2015, he had posted a 97 on Acid Rain 1.2, a song that has a 20 measure run of 174 BPM 30 seconds, or 348 BPM 16ths, which is roughly 23 keys per second. Was this a sign that he was back again, or was he going to take another break from posting scores? No one was really sure at this point. On November 10th, 2015, a person by the name of Just a Guy had posted the thread on FFR, "Who is this blatantly cheating idiot?" A thread entirely dedicated to the legitimacy of Vertex's scores, specifically his Blue Planet 1.1 quad to use for reference. The thread tries to debunk Vertex's scores by showing screenshots of the arrows being slightly off the receptors when he gets a Marvelous here and there, indicating that he was altering the timing windows of his Stepmania client. A lot of people ended up coming to disagree with this post, saying that this really isn't anything out of the ordinary to hit arrows slightly outside of the receptors and still obtaining a Marvelous. On Judge 4, the timing window suggests that you need to be 22.5 milliseconds within the receptors in order to obtain a Marvelous. This means that you don't necessarily need to be frame perfect, and that it's entirely possible to hit notes just barely within that range plenty of times. So a lot of people came to the conclusion that this was not a very valid argument. The rest of the thread is more or less pointless arguing and doesn't really go much deeper than that, eventually having the thread locked after 7 pages. While Vertex was slowly posting some scores again every few days, just 2 days after Just a Guy's thread, Vertex had posted what was his best and last set of scores to surface on the site. On November 12th, 2015, Vertex had posted a thread titled "Some Index Things." The thread starts out with him posting a proof video to immediately get the people that question these scores out of the way. To sum up what a proof video is, a player goes into their Stepmania folder until they find a file called metrics.ini. This folder is where the timing windows for each judgment are located, and he shows that the timing windows are at the Judge 4 standard, which I will show you right here. You then show that the version of Stepmania loading is from the same part of the computer as the metrics.ini file. After booting the game up, you then play a few songs with handcam that at least come close to your accused scores. Lastly, you open up the same files you had previously opened and show that they have not changed at all. This sounds like a lot, but it's a lot easier to do than it sounds, as long as you follow the steps properly. After posting his proof video, he follows it up with a set of scores that blew every other score he's done out of the water. A near quad A on Epic Manor 1.2, which is 2 minutes of non-stop 300 BPM streams with insanely hard patterns, a 99% full combo on Lawlet Speed 1.3, which is another 5-minute 300 BPM stream fest with hardly any breaks in it at all, and a few others that I will showcase later. Just hours after the thread was posted, you could have guessed by now that a couple of players that have been skeptical of Vertex's scores in the past immediately called him out again. After a few posts on the thread, Vertex responds with, "I'll never prove myself it seems. Might as well quit." While this seems sarcastic and might have been in a way, it actually ended up being Vertex's very last post and presence in general on the site. A few more pages of some arguing here and there with some people being shocked by his scores, the thread was eventually locked on November 28th, 2015, thus ending the reign of one of the most unique players this game has ever seen. Vertex manages to remain an anomaly in the 4-key scene. He pushed boundaries of an obscure playstyle faster than anyone could have imagined, especially at such a young age. The question still gets brought up every once in a while though. Where has Vertex gone, and will he ever make a return to the game again? No one really knows for certain, and probably never will know. His last post on FFR was also the last time he showed any remote activity on any site. I tried reaching out to him on Skype and on YouTube, but nothing really seemed to work. He could just be simply done with the gaming community, or just wants to play the game without accidentally starting any drama. So what are my thoughts on this? As a previous Index player and someone who was on pretty good terms with Vertex in the past, it definitely upsets me a bit how much drama he had to endure just to prove himself worthy of being a legitimate player of the game. Some of it was reasonable to a certain extent, but a good chunk of it was a bit much and became a little incessant at times. Taking months off at a time, it seemed like every time he tried to reintroduce himself to a larger part of the community, and not just the Index players, it seems like he was always being called out for being illegitimate, despite providing proof several times and live streaming with handcam. I can't imagine how annoying that must have been, and frankly, I don't really blame him for being so turned off by these people, and eventually trying to take a break from the community. Players in the past have had to go through the process of proving their scores, but not to the extent Vertex seemed to constantly face. In the end, I think a lot of players would want to see a return from him, as the era of calling people out is pretty much over due to Eterna being able to calculate every input, so no one would really have a reason to question his scores. It would also be pretty neat if some top level Index play had some light shit on it again, as it is definitely an underrated playstyle in my opinion. The only person that was even close to his scores was myself, but to be quite honest, I really wasn't that close to him at all. He was simply on another level. Thank you all so much for watching this. This took me quite a bit of time to make. Let me know if you guys want me to make another video like this. Maybe not as long, but I will definitely take some suggestions into consideration. While I was limited on the amount of information I had on his legacy as a player, I hope I was able to inform you guys on what I found to be a very unique player of the game. Be sure to follow my sellout links and check out my neat Discord. That's a good time. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys. I will see you guys around in whatever video I upload next. Bye-bye.
Well, that's done. I could probably get less. It's just those jumps. Whatever. That's still insane.